Welcome to Community Cocktails with Kimberly, hosted by Kimberly Woodard, a realtor for nearly 20 years with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Join her every first and third Wednesday of the month as she meets with the top community influencers to help you get to know the area you want to call home. Don't just love your home, love your community. And now, your host, Kimberly Woodard.
Welcome, viewers, to this episode of Community Cocktails with Kimberly. You are going to get so much information on this episode, and I'm so excited to have my guest, Kayla Wood, with Northcutt and Dean and Rose Law Firm. Welcome, Kayla.
Thanks. It's so exciting to be here and finally see what you do in person.
Yes. Well, Kayla and I go very long back, and we're not going to say how long back because then we'll reveal our age, and can't do that.
It's been a long time. We'll just put it that way.
So we are going to talk about some important stuff that if you have teenagers, kids approaching 18, or even kids over the 18, you want to tune in or send this to your friends that have this because they are going to need this information. So
yes, agree, 100%, especially those that are on the verge of 17 and about to reach the age of majority. This is the time that you need to sit down with your kiddos and talk to them about the importance of powers of attorney and what it means when they're an adult.
Yes. So let's talk about, first of all, why is it important to have these?
All right. Well, for the last 17 years, you've had a kiddo.
Yes.
And you've been totally in charge of everything.
Right.
You've been able to communicate with the schools, the doctors, anybody that they've seen or anybody that they've gone to. And now all of a sudden, literally, you go from one day when you're in charge to the very next day they become 18 and you're no longer in charge and they have to do everything for themselves.
Yes.
So the good news is you've hopefully raised a child that can, survive in the real world, fingers crossed. But the bad news is, should something, God forbid, happen, you want to be able to have some kind of an authority to be able to communicate with doctors or make decisions on their behalf, or also handle any of their financial needs that they may have that they've been taking care of personally that you won't be able to unless you've got some specific legal forms in place.
I know, and it blows my mind because if you're with that parent like myself, where I'm like, he stole my roof. I paid all the bills. I'm doing this. I make all the decisions.
Exactly. Agree 100%. Unfortunately, though, the law doesn't agree with that. The law says that legally they are an adult and you can no longer talk to them.
Yes.
So if you want to have the power to do that, which hopefully you want it and hopefully your child wants it, because they'll understand that that is in their best interest.
Right.
So there are a couple things you can do. And one of those is a medical power of attorney. And that will allow you to, like I said, speak to doctors or hospitals, caretakers, anything like that. And then there's also a statutory durable power of attorney, which allows you to handle kind of their financial side of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So both of those are important.
Yes.
And then hopefully, you won't ever need them, but just in case you do, they're there if you do.
Oh, definitely. Because, I know I had a friend where her son had to go into the hospital. And then because he was over the age of 18 and they didn't have those forms, she really couldn't talk. He was being able to make the decisions. And even though, she was paying the insurance, it didn't matter.
Exactly. And the hospital bills when they get out.
Yes.
Yeah. It's, since HIPAA was introduced, HIPAA is basically, in a broad sense, it is where it protects people's privacy issues and any kind of medical treatment they may have had. And it's a good thing because you don't want the entire world knowing, your medical background or your history. But in situations like this, when you're the parent and you want to be able to make a decision on behalf of your child, you can bypass that HIPAA rule, if you will, and then you can have these forms in place.
Yes.
So what our firm typically does is for the medical power of attorney, we go ahead and do a dual document that has a medical power of attorney as well as the HIPAA release in it.
Okay.
And so that allows the healthcare providers to talk to you and for you to make a decision on their behalf.
That's nice. And it's so important, again, because, you want to be able to, still take care of your child.
Exactly.
And, especially if there is something that happens and, God willing, you don't have this. I mean, there can be a lot of,
then it's a lot harder.
Yes. So let's talk about, that where if you don't have it, what can happen?
Well, you want to be, as the parent, you want to be the one
Right.
that is making the decision for your kiddos. You don't want someone random to make it.
Right.
Plus, you also want to know what's happening with your child. And if, let's say, for example, I know your son's down at A&M.
Yes.
My son's hopefully going to go to Ole Miss next year. How do you find out what hospital they're at? How do you find out what care and treatment they need? How do you make a decision as far as if they need an emergency surgery?
Right.
So those are things that you want to be able to do. You want to be the loved one making that decision and not letting a doctor make it for them.
Yes.
Now, obviously, if your child is still awake and they're can talk on their own, they're able to advocate for themselves, then you don't need the medical power of attorney. It's nice to still have it.
Right.
And so they can make those decisions. But if you've got it, then you're the one who gets to make that decision for them. And that's nice, not to leave it in the hands of a doctor.
Definitely.
Yes, especially when you're weighing the pros and cons of something that could be, significantly life-changing. And
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, there's so many things, and it's just, again, it's that you have it there. It's in your, in your documents of things to have.
Right.
And it's more of that just in case, just like you have, homeowners insurance, car
Exactly.
insurance.
Yes.
It's that just in case
It's
document.
just in case. Exactly. Well, and plus you don't want to be found in a circumstance where, let's say your kiddo is on their own as far as paying their rent or their bills.
Yeah.
You don't want to ruin their credit.
Right.
Because if they don't have access to pay their bills, if they don't have access to pay their rent, that can negatively affect them in the future. So it's just kind of a boots and suspenders, it just helps protect everybody.
Yeah.
So that way, if you do have a statutory power of attorney, you can get access to their bank accounts. You can pay those bills for
definitely.
them, their credit card bills, anything like that.
And I think that's something people don't realize, if you call the creditors and, they're over 18 and you don't have this, they're not going to talk to you.
They're not going to talk to you.
So-
And in fact, they want you to build up the interest. So they're not going to want you to pay
Right.
for the monthly fee, or if you happen to be the type that pay it off every month.
Yes.
So, yeah. So it's nice to have. And, a lot of kiddos, when you sit them down, when they turn 18, they feel like, oh, well, I'm an adult now. I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't want mommy and daddy to, have their thumb on me still. It's not that. You won't have that unless something, God forbid, happens.
Oh,
and you
definitely.
need it. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
it doesn't come into effect until they are perhaps incapacitated.
So let's talk about, those people that are, maybe over the 18, and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't have this.
Right.
And they're like, can I still get it done?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing to know is this isn't something that can only be done the day you turn 18. Obviously, we recommend it so that as soon as you turn 18, you're covering your bases. But let's say that one of your viewers is watching this and they're like, oh, I'm 22 and I haven't ever done that.
Right.
Absolutely, you can do it. It's not too late. And even if you're 28, that's an appropriate time too. Say you're single and you're going to work every day. I mean, God forbid, we're on these highways out here. Something happens. And it doesn't always have to be your parent. It could be your best friend.
Yeah.
It could be your significant other, a sister, a brother. It could be anybody like that. Someone that you trust, though, because a power of attorney, as far as like a statutory durable power of attorney, we kind of refer to it as the financial power of attorney. That is a very, very important document. You want to give it to someone you absolutely trust. Yeah.
And you brought a great point, because I didn't even think about, our, kids that are out there in the workforce now, and, they don't have they're not married, they're single and, just, working like normal, and then something happens,
Right. You need it. It's
Yeah.
important. And you bring up a great point by mentioning single people. If there's a single parent, for example, I've had a client recently who came in and their significant other is out of the picture.
Right.
And they wanted to have a power of attorney so that they have their parents, and then they've also got something in place for their kiddo, guardianship. And I know we both experienced a loss from a high school friend this past year, and she was a widow. Yep. And she needed something in place for, she was a single mom and needed something in place for her kiddo.
Yep.
So that's something that's really important. So even though, yes, the becoming a majority at the age of majority, that's an important time to get it done, but it's not too late. It's never too late to get it. So, and even if you are married and, have 3 kids, it's still a good time to do it.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I hope you have one. And if you don't, we need to talk afterwards.
I'm
like, Kimberly, surely you and Glenn, y'all are planners. I bet you do. But anyway, so it's never too late. But one thing that we wanted to talk about, since this is the prime of our life where we're at, is that our kiddos are at that age where they're reaching majority. And so that's why you got to get it done.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, like I said, it's just, now let's talk about how easy, because people are probably sitting there going, oh, okay, so it's this big process.
Oh, no, it's easy. It's real easy. So what you do, you call our office. You mentioned that you saw us on Kimberly's show, because then you get a special discount. Our firm is offering a special discount. We kind of have packages, and that's typical for law firms. One of our packages is specifically a medical power of attorney and a statutory power of attorney. So both the financial and the medical side. And so there's a package deal for that. And then, believe it or not, there are some people that are in their, 18, 19 that have their own businesses and that might even need a will.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for example, I've got a friend whose son owns his own landscaping business. He has a truck, a trailer, all kinds of the equipment that he needs, like lawn mowers and all of that. And it's all in his name. And he also recently on his own was able to buy a fishing boat. So he's got a lot of property in his name. So in his situation, I would recommend that he have a will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Also, for example, if kids have inherited things from grandparents or something, if they've got land or if they have a vehicle or, something like that, that's also smart to have a will for them too. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of 18-year-olds don't necessarily need that. So that's why there's kind of package options. But we're giving a great deal on both of those packages that have just the two powers of attorney and then the one with the will and the power of attorney. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does bring, we've got so many entrepreneurs out there that are young.
Yes. TikTok, Instagram, all these people that are influencers.
Yes. But it's something that, they're not really thinking of. I know, when I was 18, I wouldn't have never thought about that, kind of stuff.
No. Well, we were making $3 an hour minimum wage.
Yes, it's a little different now.
Yeah.
But it is something to really consider and to, have that plan in place. And so, these documents to have, and again, it's just no different than your insurance. It's just to have it in place.
And you were asking about the process. So it's a really quick thing. They call the office, they mention they saw, your show, and then they get a discount. They come in, they meet with me for a brief, maybe an hour. We talk about everything. And then within a couple weeks, usually we can have the documents done. Obviously, if there's something pending, like I had a client that was going in to have a stress test and she wanted all of her documents complete, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So, if there's things that are a priority, we can bump that up, but it's usually done within a week or two. It's fairly simple process. We do ask that the clients come back into the office to do a signing because we do have it notarized. Yep. So, but we can do virtual if people need it. We can do a virtual appointment because I know some people, don't want to get out, or I know a lot of your viewers could be from anywhere.
Right.
They could be from out of state. They could be down, in South Texas. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because you've got contacts everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of, kids are in college, you're like watching this and going, oh my goodness, I don't have that in place, doing, they're not here, to sign the document.
Right.
You can do it virtually.
Yes.
Or as we were talking, that older, kiddo that you have that's in their 20s, that's, maybe even in their 30s, that's single, and you're thinking, this may be something that is what we need to get in place for
Absolutely. So in that case, if there's someone that doesn't live, in the DFW area, because we're off of Central and Allen, it's a really easy location to get to. But if you do have client or, people that are potential clients that are all over Texas or anywhere else for that matter, then they can do the virtual appointment and then we can email them the documents and they can take it to a local notary. Oftentimes their bank will have it, so, or, if you have a kiddo coming in from a break, they can come in and sign it. The signing literally takes 5 or 10 minutes. It's easy. Yes. And then we make copies for you and send it with you in a little packet. And then obviously the parent could keep one at home, the kiddo could keep one at school or wherever they are.
And then you can keep one in your digital
yes, and we do email it as well. We give the digital copy. Yep, we do that too.
Because I know I have all my appointment documents in my digital files.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yes, and a little USB in the safe.
Yes. So you have it all. You've covered all your bases.
Yes. Well, and one thing we were talking about just now about you having viewers everywhere. Obviously, I'm a licensed lawyer in Texas. Right. So the law that I practice is Texas law. So any power of attorney that I put together will be based in Texas. Hopefully the person lives in Texas.
Yes.
It's going to be based on, where their home is, where their license is.
Okay.
So for example, your kiddo, he's in school in Texas, so he would be fine.
Right.
My kiddo planning on going to Ole Miss, he would be in Mississippi. So I think a question that could come up is, well, is a power of attorney that's executed in the state of Texas valid in another state? And the answer in general is, for the most part, yes.
Okay.
Every state in the United States has accepted that there are powers of attorney and that they will accept powers of attorney from other states. Where it gets a little tricky is some states require something different than what maybe Texas requires.
Okay.
So there is a Uniform Power of Attorney Act that 26 states have adopted.
Okay.
Texas is one of them. I did do a little bit of research briefly last night so that I would hopefully be well informed, because obviously I don't practice in every state in the United States. But I thought about, okay, where are my kids' friends going to college?
Correct, because we have so many going out
Exactly.
of state.
So Colorado, Alabama, Arkansas, those are ones that also are a part of this Uniform Power of Attorney Act. Unfortunately, for my sake, Mississippi isn't, but that's not to say that it still wouldn't work there. Because like I said, in general. Now, if he were going to try to sell property in when he's at Ole Miss, they might not let him do that. But we're not using that for this. I'm just using the statutory power of attorney to help him should he need to pay bills, that kind of thing.
Correct.
So, but in general, don't quote me on that because I don't want to commit malpractice. Please let's not do that on an early Tuesday morning. But in general, they should all work, especially since 26 states have adopted that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because again, we do have, a lot of us have our kiddos going all over.
Exactly. Nobody stays in state hardly. You're lucky. You're very blessed. She gets a nice break in tuition. I'm incredibly jealous.
We've got so many that do go out of state.
Yes.
And such a huge, a large, population that does all over the country too. All over.
Right. And that's why you want to make sure when you do execute your power of attorney, you want to make sure it's going to be good in the state that they're going to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because that would defeat the whole purpose, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. So I know you viewers are probably like, those that don't have it are like panicking now.
Don't panic. We can literally get this done quickly. But you definitely want to get your ducks in a row. It's just a safety net. It's like you said, it's like insurance. It's like anything else that you do. And it's good for your kids to be involved because it's a step in the right direction of growing up.
Yeah.
Okay, I've reached a point where I'm an adult and I need to think about, that I'm not invincible and that, I've got a plan for the future.
So I would say, what would you say if you've got a viewer out there and their kiddo is like reluctant because they're like, I'm 18, yahoo, I can do whatever. I guess, what would you tell that parent to help them convince their child to
encourage them? Well, have them come talk to me or have them call me and I can sit down and tell them the consequences. Like, hey, do you want random doctor in the middle of Mississippi that you don't know making your decisions? Or do you want the people who love you, care for you, would treat you any way possible? Do you want that to be the person that makes your decision for you? Also, do you want your credit score to be affected negatively should, God forbid, something happen to you?
Yes.
But not only that, if they don't want it to be their parent, have them, do their older sibling, for example. The only criteria is that you have to be of 18 and sound mind.
Okay.
So, if they trust their older sibling and they'd rather have that, they can do that. If they have an aunt or uncle or a godparent, you're my daughter's godmother, so she might rather have you do it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think that most kids, though, when they get ready to get out of the home, they're starting to mature, at least hopefully.
Right.
And I think you can reason with them. I know in my case, your case, both of our sons, and they are boys who I feel like mature a little bit slower than the girls do. And I think they both realize, number one, we want what's best for them. Correct. Number two, I don't want in your business. This only works if you're incapacitated. I can't take it down and, use it.
Right.
If you're totally awake and at least as far as the medical power of attorney. I can't take it and use it, if you're wide awake and say, oh, I want you to have plastic surgery. No, it's not like that. So that's why it's for their benefit. Yeah. And I think if you just rationalize with them and explain to them, why it's a priority and why they should have it.
Right.
Yeah. But have them call me. I'll knock some sense into them.
I always think of, there's, situations that can be out there because so many of our kids, and they, nowadays, it's not like when we were growing up, we didn't have access to so much information out there.
Right.
And they can read and they can read up and, try and see is there pros and cons.
Oh, absolutely.
They do their due diligence. We did it. Our parents would say, sign this.
And we said, okay. And we signed our life away. Exactly. But you know what? And that's another thing too. I think once you get it going, like I know I've talked to several of my friends who have kiddos that have already turned 18 and they're all wanting to do it. And so I think when it's kind of just like a rite of passage, you go get registered to vote.
Yep.
You go get your new driver's license.
Yep.
You go get your powers of attorney. It's just kind of like, check the box. This is another thing that we need to get done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the parents that your kids are over the age of 18 and you don't have this, it's time to get that started.
Yes.
And those that have the kids approaching, put that on your checklist.
Exactly. It's kind of one of those things like, okay, we got to do the graduation party. You know, we got to apply to colleges. We got to get these documents. Exact same thing.
Yeah. And it's just put it on your checklist because if you're like me, if it's not on my checklist, it doesn't happen.
Amen. My husband laughs at me all the time because he's like, don't forget to breathe. He writes it on my notes on my phone.
Well, mine is like, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. If the address is out there, I'm going to that address. It doesn't matter where it
Me
is.
too. Exactly. We're two peas in a pod.
Yes. Well, I know my viewers are out there. They're all, have taken notes during this episode. I've got Kayla's information here for y'all to, call her, get an appointment set up. She'll be happy to help you, whatever your situation is. And
absolutely.
get this done. Well, thank you
thanks
so
for having
much.
me. All right.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contact Kimberly with your real estate needs, you can reach her at kimberlywoodard.ebby.com. We hope you enjoyed our guest this week, and remember, don't just love your home, love your community.